So I'm looking at the early ballot returns for early voting in the state of Michigan, and it appears that Donald Trump may have screwed himself with comments he made the other day in Detroit. While speaking at the Detroit Economic Forum, you may remember Donald Trump thought it was a good idea to insult the city of Detroit. Now we are seeing a wave of ballots being returned in early voting, with early voting numbers through the roof, with incredible excitement and energy in the Democratic strongholds. I'm going to break it all down for you. My name is Brett Meiselas, here with the MeidasTouch Network. Remember to hit subscribe. We are on our way to 3.5 million subscribers, but we can't get there without you. Okay, let's dig right into it. First, let's replay that clip of Donald Trump attacking Detroit while speaking in Detroit the other day. Watch this.
Talking about today is high on her list. The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands.
So people were immediately furious by Donald Trump's comments in the state of Michigan, and even the Detroit Economic Club president, the individual who had hosted Donald Trump, had to issue a response. Watch what he said on the local news.
I would say I might disagree, because you and I know that there's some really, really great things happening here. And when he mentioned that, he will make Detroit come back, I don't like that term, comeback. We're doing really, really well right now. We can always do better, but I would disagree with that.
Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan quickly clapped back, writing online, "Detroit just hosted the largest NFL draft in history. The Tigers are back in the playoffs. The Lions are headed to the Super Bowl. Crime is down and our population is growing. Lots of cities should be like Detroit, and we did it all without Trump's help." Vice President Kamala Harris and her team released this incredibly powerful rapid response ad less than 24 hours after Donald Trump made those remarks. You gotta check this out. Watch.
They said we were dead.
Detroit waving the white flag, the city filing for bankruptcy.
That our best days were behind us. That living here is like
living in hell.
But you know what we said? We said, F that. We rebuilt ourselves. We looked out for each other, got our hands dirty, and put in the hard work. And this guy, he don't know anything about that. We are a city of winners, of up-and-comers, of builders, the Motor City. Bigger and better. Here, we believe in freedom. We don't bow down to nobody, and we never will. And so what Donald Trump doesn't understand, or care to learn, is that when he said,
our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president,
that he should be so goddamn lucky.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
That was an incredibly powerful ad. I can't believe they were able to turn that around in under 24 hours. Their team is on top of things. Now I want to show you this comment by Jack White. Of course, you all know Jack White, musician, rock star, the White Stripes, his solo career. Jack White from Detroit writes, "What kind of political idiot insults Detroit while speaking to Detroiters? Guess what, Trump? You ain't like us. You're gonna lose Michigan bigly. You want to be dictator orange clown. Go back to your fascist rallies." Jack White. Mallory McMorrow, a state representative in Michigan, wrote, "As a proud elected representative to tens of thousands of Detroiters, F this guy, don't come back," although she, I will add, did not censor herself. So I want to show you some of these stats from the Michigan Secretary of State's office, because the number of returned ballots from Michigan are absolutely staggering right now. The energy is through the roof. These ballots are being returned at enormously high rates, and it bodes very well for Vice President Harris and the Democrats. Let me break down what Craig Moiger says. He says, interesting number from the Michigan Secretary of State's office, 543,812 people have already returned their absentee ballots in Michigan. That's nearly 10% of the total votes, 5.5 million in the presidential race in 2020 with 25 days to go. That is an absolutely stunning number. And then when you look at the full picture, you see that over 2.1 million ballots have been sent out, with 543,650 ballots returned already. And the top municipality in the state of Michigan that has returned ballots is Detroit, and it's not even close. Detroit has the highest absentee ballot return rate in the top 40 municipalities ranked by returns, and is is 9% ahead of the statewide rate. With Detroit being a Democratic beacon, this bodes incredibly well and shows the enthusiasm of Democratic voters in the state, in the key swing state of Michigan. By the way, this isn't the first time that Donald Trump has insulted Detroit. He consistently makes these very dog whistly sort of comments saying that the people in Detroit cheat, the people in Philadelphia cheat, the people in Atlanta cheat. I think we know what he's trying to say here, but here's an example from just last month.
I'm here only because they cheat, and they cheat in this state, especially in Philadelphia. And I mentioned a couple of the areas, but for the most part, but Philadelphia is out of control. Detroit is out of control. Atlanta is out of control. Places are out of control, because if there was no cheating, if God came down from a high and said, I am going to be your vote tabulator for this election, I would leave this podium right now because I wouldn't have to speak. We wouldn't have any problem. We have to have a landslide because they cheat so damn much. We have to have a landslide.
And the fact is, I think Donald Trump is thinking of a Detroit from another time, because Detroit is currently experiencing a massive resurgence under the Biden-Harris administration. So here's what I want to do. Let's do a comparison of headlines from the Trump administration to the Biden-Harris administration. Let's present actual facts here and show you Donald Trump's promises and how they completely failed, because Trump promised that Michigan factories wouldn't close when he was president, and he lied. He said that jobs would stay here. Instead, they went to China. And now Trump and Vance are running to gut even more Michigan jobs. And I'll break it down for you with some of these headlines during the Trump administration, like this one from July 2019. GM is halting production at a 78-year-old Detroit area plant this week. Or like this one from October 2019. Remember, this is also all before the pandemic. Trump told GM workers he could save their plant, but it's gone for good. And we could even look to just a week and a half ago and see the headlines about J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, like this one in the Detroit News. Vance won't commit to $500 million federal grant for building EVs at Michigan auto plant. That would be a sign of things to come under a Trump-Vance presidency. That should be a warning for the folks in Michigan. Here's another article from the Trump administration. Trump tweets, couldn't save U.S. auto jobs in 2017. Donald Trump continued to make promises, and he failed over and over again. Now let's contrast that with some of the headlines from the Biden-Harris administration, like this one in National Geographic. Tough, cheap, and real. Detroit is cool again. Here we go again, NPR. Behind the scenes of Detroit's urban resurgence. Detroit's population is growing, a first since the 1950s. The uptick is small but significant for a city that struggled for decades. Here's another article. Detroit knows a thing or two about revival. Other cities should take note. Here's from Fox 2 Detroit. The resurgence of Michigan Central. Detroit welcomes new wave of tech startups. Here's an article in Best Places to Live in Money Magazine. Detroit, Michigan. The magic of Motor City is undeniable. Detroit's inclusion on this list will come as a surprise for many, if not most readers. At one point, the city was a symbol for urban decay, even declaring bankruptcy in 2013. However, the city has mounted one of the most successful comeback stories we have seen in the last quarter of a century. Now it's one of the country's most unlikely boomtowns. So Donald Trump, I guess he's living in the Detroit that he further destroyed under his administration. Here's another article right here. Comeback City. Embracing its underdog status, Detroit becomes one of America's coolest towns. I think you're seeing a pattern here, right? Over and over and over, I'm showing you the headlines from the Trump administration about Detroit, and then I'm showing you the headlines from the Biden-Harris administration about Detroit. And by the way, you know why it's in a resurgence right now? It's because Vice President Harris and President Biden have put in the work passing bills like the Infrastructure Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, doing all these things to actually help workers and help the middle class, help the working class. Remember, they even stood in line with the striking workers. They stood on the picket lines, the first president and vice president, I think, to do that ever in history. You could see Vice President Kamala Harris here with the UAW workers while they were on strike. You could see President President Biden here with the UAW workers while they were on strike. And while President Biden and Vice President Harris were with the striking workers, Donald Trump held a rally at a non-union plant outside of Detroit and handed out fake union members for Trump signs with a crowd that turned out to be not any union workers and not any auto workers. Here's an article from the Time. This is from last year. Signs touting auto workers for Trump at Michigan rally found to be fake. At least 2 people holding signs saying union members for Trump and auto workers for Trump turned out to be neither. And they keep doing these scams over and over. And we did a deeper report about this recently, but just this past week, J.D. Vance held an event, and here's a headline about that. J.D. Vance rally attendees wearing auto workers for Trump t-shirts weren't actually auto workers, and he held this in Michigan as well. One of the things I like is that Governor Walz is speaking out about this. He delivered a great speech the other day in Michigan where he responded to Donald Trump's comments about Detroit, basically saying you don't know anything about Detroit or the comeback that it's experiencing. Check this out.
Now look, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they got a little different view of things. Just yesterday, Donald Trump was in Detroit and he said, our whole country will end up being Detroit. You're going to have a mess on your hands. Well, look, I know you don't, that's not unexpected for him. That's exactly what he's going to do, tear down America. But if the guy would have ever spent any time in the Midwest, like all of us know, we'd know Detroit's experiencing American comeback and renaissance. Look, I'm a Twins fan and you whipped our ass. We know where this is. Detroit's there, so we know. City's growing, crime's down, factories are opening up. But those guys, all they know about manufacturing is manufacturing bullshit every time they show up. Every time they show up.
That's such a great line by Walz right there. I hope he continues to use it over and over and over again. And he just dropped a truth bomb right there in Michigan while Donald Trump was insulting the people of Michigan. You know, all this actually reminded me of a video that we did during the 2020 election. We worked with Stevie Wonder on this video, and he wrote this kind of poem for us about Michigan, and it was really beautiful. We put this video together when President Biden was running in 2020, but I think it still resonates today. So I wanted to remind you of it. And if you haven't seen it, I wanted to show this to you for the first time because I think it's really inspiring and really emotional, and the message still applies. So check this out. It's called Wonderful Michigan with Stevie Wonder. Watch this.
Hello, Michigan. It's Stevie. You know, I was born in Saginaw, raised in Detroit, Motown, and my heart belongs to Michigan. It was in Michigan that I wrote and sang songs for this country, songs for all the people of this country. If you believe in my music, then I know you believe in this great country. If you believe in Michigan, then you must know there's power in your hands.
Imagine January 20th. We swear in a president and a vice president who care about working Americans, where no matter what we look like or where we come from or who we love or how much money we got, everybody's got a chance. Michigan, that can happen.
I have to honestly tell you that I believe this election is the most important of my lifetime. Michigan, this is our moment to show the power of the state and the character of its people. It's in your hands to go vote. You can't put our country, our health, our lives, and our future in the hands of fate.
2009, when Detroit was on its back, Barack and I bet on auto workers. We stepped in and rescued the automobile industry and saved at least 1 million jobs.
A huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I probably would have been losing my home and a lot of other things that I've worked so many years to obtain.
You've got to go vote. Vote like you know that Biden and Harris are the only choice for a chance to bring this country back together.
Michigan, I'm counting on you in a big way.
Put the future in your hands, not in the hands of fate. Please go vote.
So I don't know, maybe not the best idea on the planet to insult the largest city in one of the most important swing states in the country. Then again, I'm not Donald Trump. Thankfully. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Remember to keep getting out the vote. Tell your friends and your family to vote. If you're in an early voting state, go ahead and vote now. It actually makes it easier for the people who are trying to get out the vote to get out the vote if you go vote now. So make sure you're voting. Check your voter registration if you are still able to register to vote and you're not registered. Subscribe to this channel. We are on our way to 3.5 million subscribers. Help us get there. Leave a like, leave a comment on this video, and hit the thumbs up. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you soon.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.